Hello, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and healthcare enthusiasts. Welcome to episode 9 of the Decoding AI in Healthcare series. I am Dr. Harshita, Community Engagement Manager at MedSynapse, and today we have exemplary guests, the best in their fields, who will provide us insights into AI in diabetes, endocrinology, and digital twin. Allow me to introduce our first guest, Dr. M.A. Maluk Mohamed. He is the co-founder, Global Vice President, and CEO at Twin Health. With 5 patents from his inventions in the field of health tech, Twin Health is revolutionizing the remission of chronic metabolic diseases, commercially operational in India and the US. Welcome, Dr. Maluk. Joining us next is Dr. J Lakhani, a consultant endocrinologist at Zydus Hospital in Ahmedabad. He is recognized as one of the top endocrinologists by the Endocrinology Community of India. He is a recipient of prestigious awards, including the Young Scholar Award from the Endocrine Society of India and the prestigious A.V. Gandhi Award for the Excellence in Endocrinology Research. He's the brain behind the popular app Notes in Endocrinology and the website www.endocrinology.co.in.
Thank you.
And welcome, Doctor. And now we have Dr. Amit Kumar Dey, a distinguished physician and diabetologist. Dr. Amit is not only a renowned expert in his field, but a visionary AI entrepreneur. His dedication to advancing healthcare innovation through AI is a true inspiration. And we have had insightful sessions with him and other experts and have gained valuable insights into various aspects of AI in healthcare. Dr. Amit, welcome.
Thank you very much, Harshita, for the introduction to our episode today and also to our distinguished guests. So, dear friends, a warm welcome to the episode 9, and this is supposed to be a very exciting episode. We're going to talk about some of the latest use case and applications of artificial intelligence in one of the domain and specialty of healthcare. So if you've been following our podcast, this is our 9th episodes, and in the previous 8 episodes we have dwelled into some of the basics understanding of about artificial intelligence and exploring some of the large language models and what are the ethical grounds, etc. We have covered some of those points. This is the first episode where we are going to be looking into the use cases of artificial intelligence and its associated technologies in the domain of a specialty of medicine. We will be talking about diabetes and endocrinology. And I'm very happy to have with me two very distinguished experts in this field. Of course, Dr. Om Lakhani is a dear friend. He's based out of Ahmedabad and he's done some fantastic work as an AI entrepreneur in the field with artificial intelligence technologies, and he's going to share his views on this particular topic with us. Also, I'm very glad to be connected to Dr. Maluk Mohamed, and he has been working with Twin Health. Digital twin, as we know, is a promising revolutionary technology that is probably going to take us one edge above into the domain of precision medicine in the field of diabetes care. So a warm welcome to both of you, and we won't be wasting much time, but getting straight into the discussions. And I'm going to start with Om. Now, you see, I think the domain of diabetology and endocrinology will probably be the highest use case of artificial intelligence because it's always driven by numbers and there's always ample use case of technology. Now, when we talk about diabetes, we talk about insulinization and we talk about insulin delivery systems. And we know there is a lot of application through the automated insulin delivery systems. We call it the insulin pumps, in the simple terms to understand. So for our viewers, if you can tell us that is there a way we can use, or it is being used, artificial intelligence in being used in these insulin pumps through some machine learning algorithms? What are your views and your experience on using them?
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Amit. And first of all, thank you for having me for this wonderful podcast. And like Dr. Amit said, he's more of a friend. It's always a pleasure to be talking technology with friends. So coming to your question, let me again put a step back. And there is a broad philosophy I have in terms of AI and in terms of use of technology in healthcare. My father was a physician, and since childhood I was always told that in medicine 1+1 is never 2, right? Which is what I was always told, that it could be when you have a patient in front of you, there could be several differential diagnoses, so you should always consider all of them in terms of overall picture of the patient, right? So it's maybe you auscultate a patient and you find that there's an opening snap. Well, it could be mitral stenosis, but patient could have an associated mitral regurgitation also. So the idea is that medicine is far more complex than simple. It can be broken out to simple algorithms. But the fact is that though this is true, this was probably true from a 1990s point of view. The thing is that the technology itself has become far more complex and able and more nuanced to understand the complexities of human body as well. So, for example, I think we're already using a lot of AI in our day-to-day practice, including our day-to-day practice in India. So, the rest of the podcast, we are going to discuss a lot of these applications which are already in place, right? We just don't know that there's an AI behind it, but it's already there. So, talking about insulin pumps, right? And that's a place where AI has been used for quite a long period of time, right? In fact, most of the modern pumps, which are hybrid closed loop pumps or future closed loop pumps, they use AI algorithms. They use machine learning algorithms, which are quite sophisticated. Most of them are patented, but they have already been used in practice, right? So to give you an example, a pump that we lot of us have used in practice is a Medtronic 780G pump, which is a hybrid closed loop insulin delivery system, right? So what it does is, and you again, those patients who have used it or those doctors who have given it to their patients, what the pump does is that it adjusts the basal dose based on the glucose values, and it connects through a sensor, and the sensor gives the glucose values, feeds the glucose value to the insulin pump, and then insulin pump then decides to change the rate of the basal insulin, right? So this is the early version of a hybrid closed loop system which we've all been using. And to tell you the truth, Amit, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, for patients with type 1 diabetes who can afford a 780G pump, it's a life-changing process, right? I have seen patients who are very difficult to manage, very notorious in all their behaviors in terms of type 1. When they put on the 780G pump, suddenly the time in range, which we want it to be more than 70%, tends close to even 100%, right? Which I've never seen. It's rare to see in type 2. To see this in type 1 is quite fascinating, right? So I think it's been quite remarkable in terms of use these systems being already used in practice. And again, if you see the next generation of pumps, right? So right now it is just adjusting the basal insulin. The more complex process is to adjust the bolus doses, which because there are many more variables involved in the process, right? So when I'm talking about a bolus insulin dose, you need to understand that you have to adjust the bolus dose based on the current sugar values, on where the blood sugar is trending towards, on the current active basal insulin dose which is in the system. Also, it depends on a big variable, that is the food intake, right? So what you're going to eat, how much of it you're going to eat, what percentage of that is carbohydrates, what percentage is protein, what kind of carb it is, what's the glycemic index, how is your personal glycemic response, right? Some people, as you would have noticed, a lot of people use CGM for their own purpose, and they find that maybe an apple for Amit is not same as apple for Om, right? My response,
Yes.
glucose response to the same apple of the same proportion, size, and same sizes is very different from Amit, right? So all these factors make a bolus insulin algorithm quite complex. But having said that, it's not that far away when we start having algorithms for bolus doses also. So, it will be like, you have a pump, put the pump, forget about it, right? That's all we'll have to do, right? So that's the area where we're going. Now, in terms of the back end of it, a lot of these pumps use machine learning algorithms, self-learning algorithms. And, these algorithms also, I still believe that they are, we don't know the exact nature of it because they're all proprietary. So we're not seeing the actual mathematics of these algorithms. But having said that, I also feel that there is room to improvement there also, because now, if you see in the last few years, the machine learning also and the applications also have increased manifold. There's a lot more research into it, and I think perhaps maybe in updated algorithms should do better. So these things are, again, a work in progress, but I think the future generation of the pumps are going to be even better. Not that the current ones are anything bad, they're very good, but the future ones are going to be better and also probably even cheaper, right? So you might be able to make this technology not only better, but cheaper. Right. So that's my view on using AI in insulin pumps.
Yeah, I guess that's quite an interesting and extensive overview that you have given. And as you rightly pointed out, we've had patients on the 780G pumps, and we've seen fantastic time in range. And to most of our viewers out there, these pumps are almost at the verge of closing the loop. And like he rightly said, that of course we need the bolus calculating algorithm that can kind of predict. And along with this, there is also, integration of AI into some of these continuous glucose monitoring devices that also gives you a kind of a predictive analysis as to how your blood sugars are going to shape up when you eat a certain amount of carbohydrate and you consume certain amount of calories. It's fascinating to see the predictive analysis that we get. And the interesting part, what I want to make here as an add-on to what Om said, is that now from the of machine learning and deep learning, we are in the era of generative AI using large language models and small and medium language models. So it is not very far that we will see integration of these, generative AI tools, the LLMs, or even the use of NLPs into these pumps, which will make it much more user friendly and much more personalized than we can ever imagine. So a lot of room for developments happening there. But that's one use case of artificial intelligence technology which we are already using. There are algorithms like the model predictive algorithm and fuzzy logic algorithms which are already in use in most of these pumps that Dr. Om just talked about. So in today's podcast, we're going to cover the very integral details of diabetes endocrinology use cases, and we're also going to cover about the revolutionary technology of digital twin. So while Dr. Om is going to tell us about some of the use cases in diabetes and endocrinology that we already are using, I will now go on to Dr. Mohammed about a question of understanding about what this digital twin is. So my question to you is, what exactly is digital twin? And I think this is not just my question. Many of our viewers would be wondering about this digital twin technology. So what it is, and what are the different types of digital twin technology that can find applications and use cases in the field of healthcare?
Thanks, Amit, for having here as part of this podcast. And hi, Dr. Om. Pleasure talking to you and talking about part of the podcast. Sorry that my flight got delayed and stuck and trying to take this from the airport. So digital twin is something very, very fascinating technology, which has been there since 2014. Digital twin technology is nothing but the virtual creation of any object or entity that we are trying to look at. And to talk about the type of digital twins, the major digital twins that classifications are component twins, asset twins, system twins, and process twins. When I mean about component twin, say for example, you pick up any individual component, say a motor, a sensor, or a switch. You try to create a digital twin of it and try to understand how does it perform. Look at asset twins. It's nothing but, say for example, a building by itself. You try to create a digital twin of it and try to understand how is it going to behave. Complete system of machine or something of that kind. System twin is nothing but it is all about the entire system or a processes, right? And process system is you try to understand how does a process happens. You try to create a digital twin of whatever you're trying to look at and try to see it. What a good example is when they want to do Boeing, right? Someone can't build the Boeing directly investing such a huge money. They just created digital twin of it to understand how does it work. And related to the system twin, the Ford was the first people to do it. They try to understand how does the manufacturing plant is going to be by creating a digital twin of the entire manufacturing to really understand the efficacy of the plant. So this is the revolutionary solution which is there for a long, but off late they started to get into the healthcare, right? That's really amazing.
Yeah. So We will be coming back on that, but that's a good introduction to digital twin technology, a good understanding of about how this technology is there. And like you rightly said, that yes, it's been there, and now we are finding adequate use cases in healthcare, especially probably finding a good example use in the field of precision diabetology. But I'm going to come back to you with my next question. Before that, let me go back to Om and let's try to understand another aspect or use case of artificial intelligence in the field of diabetology is screening of retinal images. And Om, you and me practicing diabetes, both of us know that the prevalence and the incidences of diabetic retinopathy is huge, especially in a country like India or in other parts of Southeast Asia. And we know that the disease burden that it brings is also huge. The complication burden it brings, it's huge. So how can we use this artificial intelligence technology for screening diabetic retinopathy, and how is it actually impacting our clinical practice in day-to-day care?
Yeah, I think, Amit, let me tell you, the use of AI in retinopathy is probably the best example of positive use of AI in clinical practice. And I'll give you reasons for that as well. So when you're talking about retinopathy screening using artificial intelligence, the tool which you're using is known as computer vision, right? Computer vision is as far advanced now, in terms of its use case, right? To give you a best example, a simple example of computer vision is that you'd have all used Google Images, right? Or you'd have used Google Photos. Now, when you put your photos on the Google Photos on the cloud, you can very easily search that what are the photos of Om, right? What are the photos in which Om and Amit are together, right? So these are very simple things. It recognizes who is Om, who is Amit, very easily in terms of the thing. And Google has been working on this for a long time. Even Google Images, you can do a reverse grid search, right? Where you upload an image and it'll tell you what this image is, right? So that's something which has been around for a while. Again, that same technology is now very, very advanced. Again, within ChatGPT itself, if you try, you can upload images and you can get some basic idea about the image, right? So you can put up an image and say that what are we seeing in this, right? And it'll be able to tell you a lot of things, right? So not going to details of how computer vision works, but it works on the principles of deep learning and convolutional neural networks and all that, right? So it's a very interesting and complex process in itself. But the fascinating part is that now computer can be used for making visual diagnosis, which is quite fascinating, right? Perhaps the use of this, which is the earliest use case of this, was actually in retinopathy. Now, the problem with retinopathy is that retinopathy is a big challenge. As you saw, almost all diabetic patients should undergo retinopathy screening, right? Except for a type 1 who's newly diagnosed. Otherwise, most cases you are considering retinopathy screening at a regular basis. Now, that's possible, but when you're using the routine, ophthalmologist doing it, sometimes there are a lot of errors, right? So sometimes it's dependent on the operator skill, right? Again, when I was an endocrine resident, one of the major fear I had when I had to give the endocrine exam was to see a retinopathy, right? You don't want to miss that out. You don't want to miss that, a microaneurysm, and then be scolded for that. You do retinopathy, fundas dekhna nahi aata hai, right? So it's one of those things. What people thought is that this is not a very difficult problem to solve. What you need is you need a fundus photography, right? And now you can do it without the dilation of pupil as well. So non-mydriatic fundus photography, if you could do even in villages, right? So all you do is you conduct camps where you take all the diabetic patients, thousands of patients. It takes few minutes to do the retinal, to fundus photograph, and then collect all these images and then send it to somebody digitally, some expert, maybe a a retina specialist, to see that what is the classification. Is this a non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy? Is this proliferative? And all that, right? Which is a great concept. So this is the origin of the concept, that you take the fundus photograph, send it to the expert. Now, what somebody thought in this is that why don't we make the process simpler? So instead of the retinologist making a diagnosis, if you could use AI to make the diagnosis, it will make the work simpler, right? You'll do the classification faster. So what it will do is, the very initial logic was retinopathy present, absent, right? It was just that. Is this a normal fundus? Is it abnormal, right? Only that classification. So what that does is that you have 1,000 images. Of that, only let's say 10, 100 have retinopathy. So the 900 does not need to be viewed by the retinologist. They are, the AI itself says that these are normal. The other 100 are the only ones which the retinologist has to really look at and then make the diagnosis. So that makes the process simpler and cheaper, right? Now the next step is, now with the improvement of the computer vision models, actually the computer vision could start making the correct diagnosis. It could say that this is non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy, this is proliferative retinopathy, and so on, right? So you could not only have normal versus abnormal, but you could also have sub-classification of these things. And then the further, process is that what you could do is that you can then say that this one requires intervention, this one requires follow-up, right? So then further funneling it down to a process where only those patients which require interventions are then referred to the retinologist, which saves time and money, right? So that's the whole network system of developing using AI in diabetic retinopathy. The fact is that it's already been there in India for a long time. There are companies which do this. You could now, in fact, using ChatGPT, make this entire system for yourself, right? So what you could do is, you do your now you have some places where you could do a personal ChatGPT system you can develop for your own. So you can make a personal retinologist where, and you can probably send a colleague of yours to the village, gather all your diabetic patients and start screening them, right? And a fascinating idea. Now, I'll tell you another very interesting thing here, right? Now, a lot of doctors, whenever we talk about AI, there's this question of that they'll take my jobs, they'll take our jobs, and so on, right? I always say that it is exactly the opposite. It will increase your work. It will, in fact, make your work easier. It will make your work very specific, and it will make your work better. I'll tell you the example of this. When this system actually came, and I remember a demonstration of this many years back. My thought was also the same, that the ophthalmologist and retinologist job is at threat. But I eventually saw that the people who are embracing this the most were the retinologists. You know why? Because what it does is you are now making the process of screening retinopathy much cheaper, easier, and faster. So you are screening more patients, right? Secondly, you are also saving the time of the retinologist by only sending the patients which require interventions instead of wasting that time on patients which do not require intervention, right? So they are giving up some amount of the consultation fees for those patients who do not require intervention. On the other hand, they are getting 10x more patients who actually require interventions, right? And anybody who works in any hospital or any system knows that end of the day, the more income is generated from a potential intervention. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. It saves money for the patients and the referring doctors because you are doing the entire process cheaper. It makes it faster, and you are able to screen a lot more patients. And for the retinologist, it actually increases the burden of work in terms of interventions while reducing the burden of work on the patients who probably do not require intervention. It saves time on that front, right? So it's a perfect combination. And this is what we always, at the end of any conference you see, any public discourse you see, it's always said that diabetes is the tip of the iceberg. There are a lot many patients of diabetes than we really know. Well, actually, AI is going to solve that problem. So that iceberg will be completely visible to you, right, from the bottoms up, right? So you have a huge lot of patients which will increase. Yes, there'll be some amount of menial clerical work which will be giving it to AI. You, on the other hand, will be doing more meaningful clinical work for patients who really need your help, right? So I think this is where we need to learn from the retinologist on the fact that you actually need to embrace the systems, because it is only going to make your work sharper and more meaningful rather than wasting your time on things that don't matter.
I mean, that is a fascinating use case approach of using artificial intelligence. And I think by far the most proven application of artificial intelligence is in the field of retinal screening. And I think IDX TopCon, that was the FDA approved retinopathy screening tool. So even we did a study, and we found that using these AI algorithms, the sensitivity of these tools are excellent. And like you rightly said, Om, that the sensitivity of detecting sight-threatening retinopathy is 100% in these deep learning algorithms. And that's where it increases the sensitivity of referral. So again, the most important use of artificial intelligence is giving the right healthcare impact to the right person in the right point of time. I think that's the beautiful essence of using artificial intelligence, and we have explored this thoroughly in the field of using AI as a retinopathy screening tool, and that is largely available now throughout the world. I would say in India, most of our clinicians are already using it, and it's a fascinating asset to have. Very, very well described there. Om. Thank you very much for that. And I'm going to move on back to our concept of digital twin to Dr. Maluk. And so you told us about this, that this technology is not very old. It's not very new, and it's been there, when you're developing an aircraft or you're building a manufacturing unit, then you're creating a replica of like a digital twin of that. So how do you use that in healthcare, or if I can be very specific, in precision diabetology?
Awesome. So you might be not new to what I'm going to talk about, but being engineer, we were all fascinated to know about this when we started to understand, when we wanted to build a solution for the chronic diseases. High sugars in the blood are actually not diseases. They are conditions. High sugars, blood pressure, cholesterol, all these are conditions. The actual root cause of the problem is the disruptive metabolism. And I mean metabolism, again, it's not new to you all. 1,000 plus biochemical reactions that takes place in the human body at every instance of time. No two humans have the same metabolism. We ourselves don't have the same metabolism throughout our life. What we are 10 minutes back is not what we are now. It's completely complex and dynamic. Because of its complex nature, the world did not have a precise way to measure it. We did not have a technology to precisely measure it. So, being engineers, when we started to really understand, as we did not have a way to precisely measure the metabolism, doctors were treating the symptom. Ultimately, high sugars are bad. They need to treat it. So, all these starting from metformin to insulin were more meant to remove the sugars from the blood rather than solving the root cause of the problem, which is the disruptive metabolism. So then when we wanted to build something new, that was the problem statement picked up. If at all we are able to build a solution, a technology to precisely measure the metabolism of a human, it's going to be a revolutionary solution. And that's a problem statement we picked up. Fine, that's awesome. It's a problem statement. And what is the solution? How to do it? The other founder of the company, the CEO of the company, Dr. Jahangir, in his earlier avatar in Jasper, has built healthcare solution of automobiles. Right? Tesla, just imagine, Tesla is built completely through digital twin technology. An autopilot car, right? How is it possible? Even a 0.01% error can topple the car. Having built that solution, we just took the genesis from there, and we're trying to understand, can we build a digital twin of a metabolism and biology of a human, right? And if at all, if you're able to do it, that's golden. But in the car, we used around 500 plus sensors to collect data and build the digital twin of a car. But in human, you cannot do that. But the most interesting, fascinating thing which we enjoyed was, in human body, every piece of data correlated with the other piece of data. So what you literally need is engineers, 2 to 3 sets of data would need to just build the whole system by itself. So we picked up few non-invasive sensors. And so sensor data, the golden data that the doctor looks upon is the diagnostic data, blood diagnostic data, and the causal data, the energy, the mood, the preference. So with these set of data, we build the digital twin of a human called the whole body digital twin. And as it learns and as it matures, we are able to precisely understand the biology of a human, the protein movement that happens in the body, by which now the first part of the solution is done. So having built this, we wanted to correct it. Here at Twin, we are not here to control sugars or manage diabetes or any of this condition. Our focus is to go solve the root cause of the problem, which is the disruptive metabolism. When members get into the program, though they are able to normalize their sugars in less than 90 days, all medications stop. We don't claim to be reversal or remission or a cure. We say they are just normalize their condition. In the second quarter, the digital twin works to optimize other chronic conditions. Third quarter, the digital twin optimize organ health. We are the first company who proved that the microvascular complication can be normalized. The fourth quarter, the beta cell regenerate and the insulin gets regulated. Now we say that he had brought the metabolic memory to an optimal state. And now we say you had remission. But is it the end? No, he had remissioned it. He needs to continue being in the journey along with the digital twin as his companion so that he traverses the body by optimally maintaining the metabolic memory from the state of remission to reversal, from reversal to cure. That's the journey that we are looking at. And the treatment factors here are, when we were born, we all grew up with mom fed us, we did activities, we slept well, and we were breathing. Just took the same set of factors along with offering precision medication. Because you cannot knock off the medication on a given day. It needs to heal and appropriately do it, right? And I would love to touch upon what Om mentioned. Technology can never replace doctors. They are enabler to doctors to become a super powerful precision to doctor. So far, it was more of generic in nature. Now, every individual can be offered precision solution. Ultimately, it's a treatment. So this is a revolutionary solution that we had built. So we are building a digital twin of the biology of a human, which is called the whole body digital twin. And say here, say for example, when I meant precision nutrition, in what way is it different from a fat diet? Is it a low carb diet? Or are you guys giving supplements? Of course, no. When I mean precision nutrition, the food that we all eat, 87 factors in it, classified as macro, micro, and beta nutrients. Most of the dietary programs focus on the macronutrients, low carb, high fat. Ultimately, when we cut the source of sugars gets normalized. There is no rocket science or magic in it, right? But ultimately, at the expense of elevated cholesterol and end organ damage. That is where is the caveat, right? Macronutrients are just a source of fuel to the body. The actual energizing factor that is responsible for growth of hormones, growth of cellular system, growth of immune system, growth of the bones are actually attributed to the micronutrients. Here comes the real challenge. Micronutrients again are classified as water soluble, fat soluble. And each of it has its own half-life. In case of water soluble, someone has to replenish daily into the body. The highest micronutrient requirement on a human body on a given day is potassium. Everyone knows. All doctors are not surprised with it. You all know. But here comes the challenge. It is 3,800 to 4,700 milligrams of potassium on a given day, right? Assume that three of us are there. We eat a tomato. Assume that tomato offers 300 milligrams of potassium. What is the bioavailability of potassium here? No one can tell. It might be 10 milligrams. It might be 150 milligrams. It might be 270 milligrams. The bioavailability of any nutrients for that matter depends on other nutrients which is present in the body at that point of time, which is nothing but the metabolism. And that's what digital twin does. Having built a solution to precisely measure the metabolism, here, though every patient gets a coach, the coach is an educator. She is not here to give the meal plans. The meal plan is given by the digital twin, balancing the 87 factors that is required by the body, right? So similarly, activity. It's not someone say, I walk 10,000 steps per day. I do 10 kilometers of cycling, but I do yoga methodically. Still, I'm not able to control it. All these activities are good, but don't overdo. Fatigue exactly what your body wants precisely at this point of time. My district, if I open and show, it says walk another 700 odd steps, right? It keeps titrating depending on how I eat and how I do it, right? It precision to what your body wants. And similarly, it's not the number of hours of sleep which matters. It's the quality of sleep which matters. It's a REM sleep. So all these are what makes up a human body. Here at Twin, we tell people, don't look at sugars, don't look at condition, look at the metabolic score, which is the factor of all these conditions by which you are able to precisely heal your body at the cellular level, the mitochondrial level. That's what is novel and innovative. So the difference between what we have done and what AI does is AI is more of analytical in model. You will be able to predict. Here at Twin, it is more of we have built a first of its kind, the generative way of literally understanding the protein movement of a human, by which we are able to offer this revolutionary solution where we have proved it and patented it and doing amazingly great. And the beauty, other thing is, I'll stop shortly. After a point of time, once the digital twin is built, the CGM patch is not required. The digital twin starts to predict the sugars. The digital twin also predicts the blood pressure. The digital twin also predicts the kidney functionality. All these are patented and proven, right? That's the novelty of what we do, by which we are doing. It's not say, it's healthcare. Doctors will embrace only when there's a precision in it and when it's not a fancy product. That's the reason we keep repeatedly telling it's a precision treatment offered by doctors, not on the shelf for anyone to pick it up and do it, right? That's what matters. And the other last piece is, when someone gets onto the platform, the digital twin identifies a list of food items which are intolerant and classifies as red food. Those are not included in the meal plans. But the beauty is, as he travels through the journey of healing, the red food start to become orange and green. Though I did not have any condition, The digital twin, idli which was red for me now becomes green. I can keep talking about it and let me stop.
Yeah.
What's the
But I think
technology solution?
it's a revolutionary thing that you're talking about, and in medical science, and both Om and myself will agree that we were using evidence-based medicine, and we are obviously going to get into that era of using data-driven precision intelligence-based medicine. So the technology that you're talking about, it's probably a step ahead, where we have a one-to-one data mapping, and we have more intelligence based medical approach for the clinicians. But yes, any approach needs a lot of research, a lot of evidence, and I'm sure you would be eager to kind of give us a small overview on that too in the upcoming section. So, with that in-depth insight from Dr. Maluk, I'll go back to Om. So, Om, you've spoken about the deep learning algorithms that we have already used in retinopathy. Another
Yeah.
challenging problem we see in diabetic patient is managing of diabetic foot problems.
Yeah.
And we do know that these problems can be largely prevented by timely screening of those neuroischemic ulcers by thermal imaging. So tell us a little about this convolutional neural network models, which can be used, to screen these thermal images of the foot, and how it can really be useful in especially in resource limited setting, just not at resource limited settings,
Yeah.
all settings of improving diabetic foot care in a diabetic patient.
Yeah, I think so. Once again, I think the same model what we used in Retina,
Yeah.
which was very successfully done. I think we have an opportunity of replicating the same in the foot care in diabetes. I think a foot care in diabetes is an ideal next step after retinopathy screening as a potential use case for AI. So let me put it two ways, right? So I'll give you two examples. Again, we are using the concept of computer vision in both these cases. So you talked about thermal imaging, which basically maps the foot based on the areas where there is already an ulcer, or perhaps areas which are high risk of developing an ulcer, and the other areas which tend to be at a low risk. So the idea is again that the areas which tend to be at high risk probably could develop an ulcer in future. Those areas we need to protect either in terms of maybe better footwear, or again better care by the patients, right? So these are the ideas. Now again, in diabetes, the basic concept is prevention is better than cure. Once the patient develops a diabetic foot ulcer, then starts the long journey of treating it and then preventing it from developing again, and so on, right? So it's a difficult process, right? A lot of patients eventually end up losing their foot, which is a very sad part, right? So the first step in if you want to prevent the patient from losing their foot or losing their vision, is to use these technologies much earlier than what we typically do. So the idea in perhaps the thermal imaging is that you use these devices, again use a screening cams or something, you generate all these images, and the images can be put into an AI algorithm, which can easily then say that these are high risk foot and these need to see a diabetologist or endocrinologist, and these are areas where perhaps the patient can just simply change the footwear, or perhaps these are areas where the patients can probably be okay, that there's nothing majorly wrong with them, right? So this is a good concept again to use. Again, what we are doing here is that we are bifurcating the patients in terms of who are at higher risk compared to those who are at a lower risk, so that when you have the patient in your OPD or referred to in your OPD, you are basically dealing with the patients who need the maximum care and attention, rather than dealing with patients who perhaps can easily be screened out and can be managed at home. So I think that same concept what we use in retinopathy can be developed here, but even a simpler way of doing, I think, and perhaps this is something which you could a lot of listeners can try this at home, right? Amit and I, we were planning a future workshop for doctors to use AI, and one of the things, in an earlier system I had shown. So try this out. If you have a Chat GPT Plus subscription, what you can do is you can go to that. Just take one foot image, maybe a badly developed foot, maybe ulcer with gangrene or something, neuroischemic ulcer. Or so, just find an image on Google, or maybe you have a patient's image. You can upload it on Chat GPT and tell that this my patient has type 2 diabetes, and this is the image of the foot. And can you tell me some basic things that you see? So it will for sure tell you that there is gangrene, there is this, there's this scheme, there is ulcer, basic things, right? Now, obviously, for an expert who deals with diabetic foot day in, day out, this is probably not enough. But imagine if you're a patient, this is something which is probably good, right? So perhaps maybe some entrepreneur listening to this develops an app which is very simple app. All you do is you take the picture of your foot every day, right? And all it does is classifies your foot based on whether your foot is already having an ulcer or already having a callosity, already having some gangrene or other changes, and you need to see your doctor ASAP, or it says that your foot is fine, right? So just the simple screening thing can bring your patient to early medical attention. Remember, one of the aspects of diabetic foot when we deal with them day in, day out is that you should inspect your feet daily, right? So instead of inspecting your feet, take a little photo of your feet and put it on that system, and all you require is just Chat GPT, plain Jane GPT-4 at the background, and you will be able to kind of classify these things, right? So I think these are some simple applications which a lot of the times the simple things can actually make a big difference, right? So if you then if patients start taking, instead of taking selfies of themselves putting on Instagram, they can take a picture of the feet every day, or take a picture of the parents' feet every day and get it classified, saying that is there an ulcer, is there no ulcer? Remember, again, diabetic patients, there's loss of sensation, so they may not actually recognize the ulcer much until it's much later. So if they can do that, perhaps these patients can come to the attention of a doctor much earlier and prevent a potential foot disaster rather than other thing else. So there is because diabetic foot is a very visual thing. It's a gross visual thing, right? Which AI can easily use it and easily recognize. And all we need is, do I need to see a doctor, or do I not need to see a doctor? If that classification you're able to do, that makes it a very beautiful system, and I think a very good use case for all diabetologists and endocrinologists who are practicing.
Yeah, and to all our viewers out there, I should tell you that Dr. Om Lakhani here is one of the best person to put all technologies into real world applications, and he loves sharing that with all of us. So thank you, Om, for all those tips for our viewers. The other important thing is, most of these diabetic foot problems that we see in our patients have a neuroischemic etiology. They have a mixed etiology. And that's why, these mappings, the heat mappings of the feet is actually going to be very useful in providing some kind of even a primordial prevention strategy. So even before, the problem have started generating, an ulcer has started happening, or a corn or a callus has started developing, the heat mapping or the thermal images can give you some kind of a prediction as to how much the foot is prone, or that part of that foot is prone to develop or go into an ulcer. And I think not just that, I mean there are also some smart socks which can kind of tell the patient about their gait and the pressure points in different parts of the foot, and predict which are the areas of the foot that you are more prone to get any ulcer. So again, that brings again to that point of mapping the right data and giving the right prediction to the patient, somewhat taking us back into that concept of digital twin that we were discussing with Dr. Maluk. So this being an AI podcast, Dr. Maluk, and we are in the era of generative AI. Now, you spoke about a revolutionary technology like digital twin, and kind of creating a replica of a complex human body using the whole body digital twin. Do you see a place of integrating the modern day AI into this for a better precision outcome in terms of using the large language models or the NLPs or in any other form of machine learning algorithms?
So of course, that is a fundamental law. The so-called AI, more of analytic in nature, what has been there. Say, for example, one of the application of AI which is evolving is, say, for example, a doctor talks to the patient. And once the communication is done, the system can generate, the AI model can generate a prescription for the patient, right? Literally can develop a prescription for the patient. And these are something based on the analytics. But what is interesting is, as I told, every body is unique. And every body, how he responds for a particular input is unique, right? To quote a simple example, why most of the data, say metrics, have a normal range, which is something which has to be looked at differently. Say vitamin D. Vitamin D in each part of the world has to be looked at completely different based on the radiation of the sun, right? And that is one such example. So when the digital twin starts to look at all those nuances and starts to create a generative solution completely. It is just not analytics, right? Say, for example, as of today, we have around 19 trillion digital twin built. And every twin isn't unique by itself because, as we said, metabolism of a human is completely unique. And it is no two humans are the same, right? But it starts to learn, it starts to build by itself. And that is the reason why, as it keeps building, it becomes easier for the individual. It self-learns, right? To quote an example, Elon Musk has this crazy ask, my car should better perform as it ages. Similarly, we would say, we should better perform as we age. But do you have this technological solution? That's where all these integration of all these modern tools comes into place, right? Say, Dr. Om talked about chat GPT, right? But the beauty here is the chat GPT is more on the open source data which is available, right?
Yes.
But when it comes to healthcare, it should be precision to what is mine, right?
True.
I would love to quote an example and stop this for the answering this question. When we have a doubt, what we do, we literally will go Google it, right? When you have a doubt onto your body, go twin it. Go twin it. It lets you know the condition of your body. We have filed a patent for it. How did we build it? It is a generative integration of multiple solutions and correlation of all these data to literally understand the biology of a human, which is continuously unique at every instance. And it offers a solution, which is completely generative in nature. Hope it answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, that is excellent. That is excellent to what you just said. And I think going ahead, you would probably find more application of generative AI into your technology, probably, or even maybe, use. I'm just thinking aloud here. Maybe use a more user-friendly form of the AI to give a better representation of the whole body twin to the user and to the doctor who is using it in a better verse, probably. I mean, that would really be fascinating, or incorporated with a virtual chatbot that would just keep on becoming, a digital friend or a twin friend of that individual, giving right direction. So I mean, sky is the limit. Sky is the limit to using technology,
Totally with you.
especially in the
Totally.
field of precision medicine. So, Dr. Om, I'm going to come back to you now. You've been one of the most innovative user of ChatGPT into daily practice of using large language models, both the open source as well as the proprietorship ones. And we keep talking about, we are almost at the end of 2023, going into 2024. We keep talking about the impact that these large language models are going to have on the clinical decision support system that a clinician uses into his daily practice. So let's talk about these LLMs, both the open source proprietorship ones, and also some specific use cases that you can give examples with ChatGPT about how you see these language models changing the clinical decision support system in the field of diabetes and endocrinology.
Yeah, so thanks, Amit, for that question. Just to tell you, we have built two unique applications for using the LLM models, existing LLM models. We custom built some models of our own. So one of them is called Endo AI. It is currently under maintenance, so it will be available soon. So there is a big open source textbook of endocrinology called EndoText, which was started by Dr. Leslie DeGroot, who is a legend in the field of endocrinology. And Leslie also has a textbook of endocrinology, which is DeGroot's textbook of endocrinology. So this is again a sort of a medical open source, you can say. You had the some beautiful articles in the field of endocrinology constantly being updated and constantly being revised and constantly being edited, available free of charge on the internet, right? So this is endotext.org. Now, the idea was that we connected with Endotext, with the editor-in-chief called Kenneth Feingold. So we connected with Dr. Feingold and we said that, why don't we, if we can get this into an AI system using the current, built using the current ChatGPT models, can we ask questions to Endotext and get answers? This was a very early experiment. Now, in fact, doing this has become a child's play. My 10-year-old daughter can probably do this if I teach her how to do it herself, but it was a little difficult then. So we did this. We extracted the data from all the chapters on endotext and put it up in the Endo AI. And we developed the model on top of that. It worked beautifully. You could ask any questions in the field of endocrinology, you'll get a beautiful answer. This little smart prompt engineering also we did at the back end. So this is actually the future. The fact is that now the next generation of medical students are not going to really read Harrison. They're going to put Harrison on ChatGPT and ask questions to Harrison, right? That, tell me the dose of doxycycline in this condition, right? So the point being that, now learning has changed, has evolved with the use of large language models. And now finding, Google did for us for our generation, maybe for the next generation, ChatGPT does this much easier, right? So even, these days, if you have a clinical question in your mind, you're not going to go to the library and you're not going to, open the textbooks and open the, you have this long indexes in the back trying to find, Hashimoto's encephalopathy and that, and then reading the chapter on that and finding the answer to that. And you don't find a satisfactory answer in one of the textbooks, so you go to the next one. It's a complex process, right? Instead of you just Google Hashimoto's encephalopathy and get 100 articles on that, right? Then of course you have to read those 100 articles. So you go to ChatGPT and say, tell me the best article on this, right? Then you read one. So that's the idea. What it's doing is, instead of wasting time trying to search for, so 90% of the time is wasted searching for the information. Now you're using your time more optimally trying to understand that information. So that is what is the big change. And in that sense, the process of learning becomes faster and much easier, right? A lot of people feel that, it is pre-digested content, but that doesn't matter, right? See, as long as it helps your patient, if it helps you treat your patient better, what difference does it make that, you use the long way to find the answer, or you find the shortcut to find the answer, right? So that should not really matter, as long as you are delivering good quality care. The other thing is, I have a little, inclination to code myself. I've been doing that for a long time, for longest period in my life. So I thought, we all talked about this computational medicine concept that, 1 + 1 has been told to us is not 2. Well, why not? Why not? Why is 1 + 1 not 2? Right? We look at what Twin Health is doing, right? They are developing a digital model where for every individual 1 + 1 is 2, right? And then 1 + 1 is 2 on Thursday, and Friday there's a different 1 + 1, but it's still 2, right? You're still trying to find a precision answer to the solution, right? It's possible. It's not completely impossible, right? Only thing is you need to know how. So the point, what we tried to do, we built a custom solution, which we got a little funding from RSSDI as well. So thankful to them. It's called diabetology.co.in, where we are trying to develop precision medicine algorithm for diabetes. What Twin Health is doing is precision nutrition to a lot of extent. We are doing actually precision medicine, right? Where we are actually, the medications are prescribed based on the patient's clinical profile. Now, all type 2 patients are not the same. There are type 2 patients who have higher risk of cardiovascular disease. There are type 2 patients who have higher risk of diabetic kidney disease. There are type 2 diabetic patients with fatty liver. There are type 2 diabetic patients with a diabetic neuropathy, right? So every patient has their own unique custom challenges to be dealt with, right? Some patients are catabolic in nature, some have osmotic symptoms, right? So every patient is different. Again, at different points of time, they're different. So the idea is that by putting, let's say a newly diagnosed patient with diabetes, you put in the patient's data, and we are able to generate, a prescription, like Dr. Maluk said. This is actually that is what we're doing, right? So you put in the data, and you actually generate a prescription for the patient, right? And of course, you have the power to then decide which of these you want to use. It's just a suggestive system, right? And then maybe it suggests that you use SGLT2, but you feel probably that an SGLT2 may not be the right thing. That's fine. So that's the idea. It gives you a suggestive treatment algorithm based on the patient's HbA1c, clinical profile, other parameters, cardiovascular risk, everything, right? Whether the patient needs statin or not, whether the patient needs a Finridone or not, all these things are then looked at using this model. It's currently available. We have a slightly older version available on the website. We have a newer version which will upload soon, so you can check it out. Put in some random data of some of your patients and see how treatment it generates, and then you can always give me feedback, right? So here also we have used a concept called explainable AI, which is very, very important, right? So we talk to any experts who have been working in the field of AI for a long time for healthcare. One of the fundamental principle, and Amit, you and I have been dealing with doctors for a long time, trying to talk to them about AI. You've been doing this in a series of your podcasts, right? Now, one of the challenges which doctors often have, we ourselves have, we tend to be over a period of time a lot of control freak. We are elements of that. No, you're telling me, but you tell me how, right? And that is where explainable AI really comes into picture, right? Where it let's say it is recommending the patient to take an SGLT2. It is also telling you why SGLT2 is the right drug for the patient, right? If it's recommending a statin in a particular dose, that will also tell you why that particular dose of statin, and perhaps what is the what is the guideline recommendation, and what is the why should you do that, right? So that's the idea. That is explainable AI. You can always go back, check, since we practice evidence-based medicine, you can always go back and check the evidence which has been given to you, right? And you can then verify, and then end of the day, do due diligence, and then deliver. I think for all healthcare entrepreneurs, this is something which is absolutely fundamental, that you have to understand that whatever system that you develop, you need to understand that that system at the end of the day needs to explain to the doctor why you're doing it, because the premise of evidence-based medicine is that the doctor should be able to understand and digest. It cannot be just magic out of thin air. It has to be there has to be a plausible explanation for the entire system, right? Because that is how we already are, right? So any entrepreneur who really understands that this is something you could do, that's the models which are going to be very successful, right? So large language models have a lot of application. We work in a field where knowledge is the most important thing, right? And that's why using knowledge which is easily accessible, which is correct, which is explainable, makes it very, very important.
Very right. Beautifully explained, Dr. Om. Large language models, the success of it largely depend upon the data set that it is getting trained upon. That is going to be a very important aspect. And like you rightly said, while there has to be the explainable use of AI, there has to be also adequate ethical use of AI in these large language models. And you brought up a very interesting point there, and I will go back to Dr. Maluk with that point. It's that, like you rightly said, that you're telling me that this is working, but you got to could tell me how it is working and why it is working. Do you have an evidence on it? So fantastic technology there that you just discussed, Dr. Maluk. Can you tell us about some of the evidences? I'm sure there must be a lot of evidences that you have gathered and you're working day and day in and out. So for our viewers, what are the evidences or the hows and the whys question? If you can tell us in brief, and we are almost to the end of the episode, but we would love to hear that from you about twin
So,
technology.
any doctor, whatever technology, whatever great product you build, ultimately, if it is not proved through evidence, no doctor dare to come near it to you, whatever is the truth, right? So we ran a randomized control trial, 3 in India and 1 in US. 1 in the US is Cleveland Clinic. Very proud to share that even after 3 years, the study, we had proved that 77% of people can remission, they are sustaining the outcome. And it's just not the diabetes remission. As we are solving the root cause of the problem, you name any condition for that. We have proved that 94% of the heart health, the 10 years ASCVD score is normalized, for which American Heart Association awarded us. As I told, infertility, we have proved that it can be reversed. Microvascular complication can be reversed. Retinopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy can be reversed. We proved and published. The best out of all is we had proved the mental health substantially improves far better than an antidepressive drug. Right? And all these evidence that we have generated through the randomized control trial are published in the best of the best journals, and were presented in various conferences across the globe. And we had the full paper of the first year data published in Endocrine Practice and in Lancet, right? And the second year paper is getting into the NEJM now, and the data is remarkably great. That's the reason why doctors have started to embrace it. And earlier we had some reluctance with the doctor. Hey, it's too early for us to accept it. Right now, sustenance is what they are questioning it. We had proved. And the next question the doctors were trying to ask us, hey, come on, when people get into the program, they get excited, they start to follow. But what happened? The toughest of all in human is behavioral change. How is it possible? That's the power of digital twin. The last thing is, here, when we spoke to doctors, doctor said, hey, it's just not the health outcome we are looking at. We want my patients to be happy. That's the first question we look at. digital twin helps people to become happy and healthy. We have a way to precisely capture that, and we have proved it. So it's completely evidence-based. And as you rightly said, in yet another podcast, I would love to walk you through completely data of what we had presented. We had proved fatty liver could be reversed with MRE data, right? We had proved hypertension can be reversed. The interesting fact in hypertension is when you want to reverse hypertension, you need to go check the end organ condition. The digital twin understands appropriately. The titration of the medication is completely based on the holistic condition of the body by which things happen. So as it is the top of the hour, I just condensed and answered the question. Yes, we have amazing evidence which is available, and a lot of doctors are involved in it, and we want more and more doctors to be part of this particular study.
Yeah, sure. And beautifully put there. And we will also be very keen on following the developments happening in the domain of digital twin with you guys. And as you rightly pointed out, there has to be adequate evidence coming out of it. And the whole success of any technology or any AI tool lies in its explainability and its extensive adaptability. I think that these are the two things that kind of largely determines the success of that technology. So having said that, we had a fascinating discussion, but all good things needs to come to an end. But before we end, we have a large group of audience and viewers listening to us through the MedSynapse platform. And I would like to have Harshita back on screen. And if Harshita can bring us some quick questions, maybe just a couple of them from our audiences, and then we can call it a wrap. Harshita.
Yeah, so yes, we have received questions from our audience, and some of these have already been extensively covered in the discussion, and we'll take few. So the first question is, considering the rapid advancements in AI, what ethical considerations do you foresee in its application to diabetes and endocrine care?
All right, Dr. Om, you want to take that, please?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times we need to be careful that we could always sometimes overdo things, and sometimes we need to be careful that we may underdo. Right, both are problems. So sometimes we often put the cart before the horse. While we are very excited about AI, we also need to know the limitations of the same. AI is still in very early baby steps. We need to understand that, and we also always need to use our right judgment and not completely depend on AI at this point of time for the diagnosis, unless of course you have a system which has already been proven. For example, what we talked about in terms of evidence-based research, right? So I think this is something we need to be really first careful. B, also we need to understand that for example, if you're putting your patient's data on open models like ChatGPT and other things, remember these models can be, though of course it's a drop in the ocean, but remember these are open source models where all this data and then churn back into the system, right? So of course we don't have very clear ethical regulations behind it, but at our level we need to understand that this is somebody else's data which we are putting on an open system, right? Which we need to, it's like putting your patient's story on a blog which is accessible by Google, right? That is something we have to be careful of these things, right? So be careful of putting your hospital data, your patient's data, your proprietary data, your research data. I'm not saying you don't do it. I'm saying that you be careful in doing that, because these are there is a backend there where we don't know where the data is really going. So these are some important challenges which we have to deal with. Of course, these are not deal breakers of in any way. There is a lot of potential of AI, a lot of potential to do good compared to the small nuanced arguments against it. But at the end of the day, we need to apply our better judgment in all these things.
So in true sense, for AI to be ethical, it's got to be transparent. It has to be explainable. It has to be reproducible. That is also very important. And most importantly, it has to be interpretable in simple language that the user understands. And I think that is the whole essence of data and digital and AI literacy. And that is the whole reason why we host podcasts like this every fortnight, is because we want our clinician friends to be literate about the technology that you're using, whether it's a digital twin technology, whether it's an LLM. You have to be literate and you have to understand. as to how it is working, why it is working this way, and why it is giving a certain output to a certain prompt or an input that you have given. I think that is going to be what we are going to be looking at, teaching ourselves in the next decade or so. And it's only, we are just taking the baby steps, and like Om said, and it's miles to go for all of us there. Next question, I would like a question on digital twin, if it's there, to Dr. Maluk. Ashita.
Yeah. So one question is, as we delve into the era of digital twin, how do you see the integration of patient-specific digital models influencing decision-making in diabetes management and endocrine disorders?
So as I explained, it recommends precisely depending on each individual body, and the recommendation is completely unique at every instance. It keeps changing. And when it comes to medication, the recommendation goes to the doctor, and the doctor is the one who acts on it. It doesn't go to the patient directly. The recommendation goes to the doctor, and doctor has to act on it, right? And to touch upon the last question with reference to digital twin, it completely aligned with the compliances. As we are both in existence in the US and India, US healthcare is very, very finicky. We follow HIPAA compliances on the security and on the other compliances. And all the best practice in either country we had taken into consideration, and we strictly follow that.
Amazing, fantastic. So, dear friends, that brings us to the end of this fantastic podcast episode. I think this has been a high energy podcast with a lot of inputs coming in from both our guest speakers. And once again, a big thanks to both of you for joining in. Especially, I understand Maluk is traveling, he's in the airport, but thanks to technology that he could connect with us on the go. That's again a blessing of technology with us. And Dr. Om, a dear friend, he's always a busy clinician. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks to both of you for sharing your insights. Dear friends, we're going to come back very soon in the next episode. I'll be back with my co-host Deepu Patel from USA. And what we're going to do in the next episode is, we're not going to bring you anything new, but we're going to have a re-look back. We're going to have a recap of the topics that we have covered in this year. We're going to come back in the second week of January with the next episode of podcast. Thank you once again for following our podcast over the last few months. We've got fantastic response. We keep getting texts and messages and requests from our peer groups and clinician friends not just across the country, across India, but also across many parts of Southeast Asia and in different parts of the world, sharing your thoughts and your feedbacks on the content that you want to be seen. Thank you there. Thanks for being there with us. Keep spreading the awareness on technology and AI literacy, and keep supporting each other. It's a long wall out there for us. For some of us, like Om and myself, when we started about learning about AI, we realized that we are some of the lonely ones in the group, and now we know that we have so many friends there to us. So you just need to take an initiative somewhere, and you will really feel that it's just someone needs to ignite, and the buzz of using good technology and AI for better clinical care will just explode. So with that, thank you very much again for joining us. And we will again see you soon in the next episode. Harshita, for the concluding words.
Thank you, Dr. Amit.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Amit.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing your insights. Your perspectives have truly enlightened us, and we look forward to having you back soon. And audience, if you have further questions or would like to explore more topics in the world of medicine, don't forget to connect with us on our MedSynapse platform. MedSynapse platform is not just a resource, it's a dynamic space where you can connect with esteemed medical professionals, participate in meaningful discussions, and contribute to the ongoing evolution of healthcare. So until then, stay curious and stay informed. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks. Bye, Om. Bye all.